memoir, you're also bringing in delusions of grandeur. You're bringing in guilt. And guilt really changes how you view things, because I got sort of caught in another thing, which wasn't exactly a lie, but what happened when I was a kid is we had a club called the Bloods, and I know I made up the title, and you can see the literary quality beginning early. And there was about 7 of us, and the initiation for the club was that you had to go down the Niagara Escarpment. You're right. Have you ever come across the Lewiston Bridge there? That escarpment. We made everybody go down there on a sled and turn at the very end. So I know. When I went back to look at that, I thought that was suicidal, right? But anyway, there was one guy named Trent McMaster, and he really wasn't the type, as my mother said, he was not working out as a kid, but would be an interesting adult. Yeah. So anyway, Trent, we said, okay, so we told him he had to go down as well, and we knew he wasn't going to make it, and he didn't. He went right into the Niagara River and held onto one of the ice bars, and his fingers froze and had to be amputated. Yeah. It was my penance to take his lunchbox every day to school, because he was in bandages. So it was a trauma for everyone. And, one of the sayings in Lewiston became, if Kathy McClure told you to jump, into the falls, would you do it? Right? It became one of those. But anyway, when I grew up, and like last year, and went to visit him, he's now a professor at Stanford. I went to visit him, and actually he only had one finger and another tiny bit of another finger missing. So it wasn't that big of a deal, right? I mean, what's a finger after all, right? What's a finger, right? You've got 9 others, right, as my mother said. But it wasn't the big deal that we thought it was and that we remembered it as. So when I went back to Lewiston to talk to people, I said, I saw Stumpy McMaster, who still goes by the name of Stumpy. I said, he even has Stumpy on his mailbox. I said, when I saw Stumpy in California, he was only missing a finger and a little bit of another one. And they said, nope, missing all his digits. All the digits are gone. And so it was a trauma for them as well. So their memory is of him in these bandages. But the fact of the matter is it was sort of a group guilt. And in fact, it wasn't half as bad as I described it in the book. So then I thought later, wow, in the next edition, should I change that and make it different? And then I thought, no, because memory is really about the things that you do and then the consequences. And those consequences are all kinds of defense mechanisms become involved in them. So when people say to me, is your book true? And if I write a memoir, what's going to happen? When people say, is it true, is it not true? So I'm just saying, don't count on your memory being true. I mean, I don't have brothers and sisters at all, and I don't have parents that are alive. And all of my cousins are nuns or priests. So, right, and they don't talk to me anyway. So I don't really have anybody that objects to anything that I ever say. But I'm sure you must have sisters and brothers, and you must disagree about memories. You must say things happened that way, and they say, no, they didn't. They happened this way. Right? So when you write your memoir, you really have to be true to your memory. Don't start asking 50 people it's like what Rob Sawyer said at noon, don't start asking 1 million people about your story. Just say, this is my memory, and then go with it. And if other people say, well, it didn't happen that way, say, that's how I remember it. So don't worry about that. Now, the other thing that someone brought up today is they're writing a memoir. A number of people have brought this up to me, is the issue of legal issues. What happens if you write a memoir and people don't like what you've said about them? Can they sue you? Well, I've just gone through that. And my book is coming out in the States. My second book, the one about high school and university, is coming out in the States in November, so I'll find out then. But when at Random House, Canada, there was a chapter in the book where they said, get that chapter out. Get it out. Because it's going to, people can sue you, and it's a repulsive chapter anyway, and, just get it out. And I said I really didn't want to take it out. So we had wound up having this, not fight, but something like that, I guess, about it. And when the lawyers got involved, and lawyers are $500 an hour, and it may take you 3 days to read a book, it takes them a month at their hourly rate, right? But so what happened is, just to give you a little bit about this issue, is in grade 7, I went to a friend's house, and she had 2 brothers who were in the Football Hall of Fame, and they were very rich, and they had all kinds of wings to their home, etc. And the parents went away to a country club for the weekend and said that I could stay there, and the boys were having a fraternity meeting. So I said, let's hide in the closet in the rec room and watch what happens at their fraternity meeting. And she said, that's a bad idea. Like, they don't do anything interesting anyway. I said, oh, but this will be great. We'll be like, it'll be like we're a fly on the wall and no one will know we're there. So she said, okay. So they had that slotted kind of closet. So we were there, and then we watched, and these 16 boys called over one woman, and all of them had sex with her. So it was bad, right? So I wrote that part up. I wrote about what it looked like from the closet to me, and each one of those boys had to say to her, I love you. That was the key phrase. So I wrote about this from the point of view of a 13-year-old watching this event. Sorry, you're eating dinner, but whatever. Right. So I wrote about that, and then oddly enough, 2 of those boys that were in that room became really famous. And then when I went to Random House, they said, well, is anybody famous there? And I said, yeah. And I named them. They said, oh, get that out. So then I said, if I take that chapter out, there's 2 things that are a problem, right? One, you'll have no idea why I felt antipathy toward males for the rest of my high school career. So I will just look like a total neurotic, right? My entire personality will develop without you, the reader, having any idea why it's developed along those lines. I said, so I don't want to do that. So then they said, okay, then clean the chapter up a bit, which I did. Then they said, okay, now I want you to change the ethnic character of them, and I want you to change what the father's job was. So I said, okay. Do we suddenly hear voices? Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. I thought maybe it was those same boys. Right. Whoa! Suddenly they were, tweaking in. It was pretty scary. So I said, okay. So I did that, and then they said, now have the 2 football players go out for pizza when this whole thing happens. I said no, because that's not true to my memory, and I don't want to do that. So then we had the lawyers in, and the lawyers went on for, and that cost me half of my advance, those lawyers. Yeah. So, it's a big, huge issue. So the lawyers finally said, okay, well, I guess wow, they're loud. So then I said, okay, well, I guess that's what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to change the names, but then I said, let's just make it into a novel. I finally said, let's call it a novel, because I don't want to change that. And then they said, of course, Random House didn't want it to be a novel because they wanted it to match the first volume of my memoir. So we were sort of at a stalemate. Then we finally agreed that I'd pay half and they'd pay half if I were to be sued. So then I said to the lawyer, I said, well, I'm really between a rock and a hard place, because if I change my memoir, I'm going to be like James Fry, and I'm going to be interrogated on Oprah, right? And it's not going to be true, right? And I said, and then if I write it as a novel, people will say this is true, right? So what do people do that want to tell the truth in a memoir? You tell me. He said, if you really want to tell the truth, you write a novel. So on that note, thank you very much. Right.